All right, here we go. Ready? Okay. You sure you're ready, Hassan?
Let me just text my mom real quick.
Are you recording?
Yeah, I think we should be recording while he's texting his mother.
Hey.
Let me know when you're ready.
And good.
Welcome to Yippee-Ki-Yay Mother Podcast, a multi-generational discussion of movies.
Welcome to the party, pal!
I'm Ralph Quartucci.
I'm Sean Paul Murphy.
I'm Hassan.
And we have a special guest today, and that is...
Michele Wojciechowski. I'm a national award-winning writer.
Awesome. What can we call you?
You can call me Wojo.
Excellent. Wojo. We got it. So today's movie has been chosen by our millennial Hassan. Hassan, what movie did you pick for us?
I picked Cinema Paradiso. Did you want to redo that opening again? You didn't do a second take?
No, that's pre-recorded anyway. And it's Paradiso.
Cinema Paradiso.
Thank you.
Sorry, my Italian's a little rusty. It's been about more than 25 years since I've been to Italy.
Wow.
I'm 25 years old.
So there you go. So why don't you explain that? Not explain, but tell us what the movie. Give us some little insight on the movie, and then we'll show a trailer just to get us into the mood.
Yeah. So this is the movie about Salvatore Toto, who's a director, and he goes back home to Italy, and it's just like reminiscing through his like boyhood and like adult life, like how he grew up in this theater.
Cinema. Hence the name. Cinema Paradiso.
What was the name of the theater?
Cinema Paradiso.
Good. We almost got us on that one. Yeah. All right. So so it's a coming home.
It's a coming home story
wrapped around in film.
It's also like a coming of age story because
right?
It's like the thing is because it's all in flashbacks. It's both. It's coming home and it's coming of age.
It's almost like
the film we saw was mostly in flashbacks.
Right.
But we'll get to that later.
Yeah, Wojo saw a different film.
Yes, I did.
The much longer.
The very long.
But we're primarily talking about the 2-hour version, which is the one that won all the awards. Wojo saw the 3-hour version,
which is depressing and sad and makes you hate one of the characters.
Right,
so
and was by the way, spoilers all over the place. Sorry,
but if you haven't seen the film since 1989,
then you need to get out.
Yeah, you need to get out more and see Italian films.
So yes, the 2-hour version was cut after the 3-hour version was too boring for everybody, and the director hated making the cuts, and then it won all the awards. So having said that, we're just going to take a look at the preview, and then we'll move on.
12 years ago, master filmmaker Giuseppe Tonatore won the Academy Award for Cinema Paradiso. Now Miramax Home Entertainment is proud to present Cinema Paradiso, the new version. This Miramax Collector's Series DVD is digitally remastered, fully restored, and includes more than 51 minutes of never-before-seen footage. For those who've never seen it. For those who've never forgotten it. Discover what really happened to the love of a lifetime.
I love this movie because I love the cinema. I love the art of the cinema. And I love how this movie just like is in a time where this cinema is on the incline, and like this isn't just like something people do as like a date night. This is like something they do every night. This is like how they pass time, how they spend their days,
how they meet their wives,
how they meet their wives, how they make love, apparently,
how they murder people.
Yeah. And I also love that it combines the history of cinema with the kids' life. Like it's a coming of age story, and I love that. I love like seeing him progress through life. I thought the casting was amazing because the progression was very smooth. Even in the end, when you see the look on the guy's face when he's so old, you could still see that like look when he first saw those scenes being taken out of the theater, like when he was a little boy.
Yeah, so it's and it's 3 stages of his life.
Yeah.
Him as a young kid, him as a teenager, I guess, and then him as the older, successful director of films. The idea of community, this is World War II Italy, so those
post World War II, the war
everybody's ravaged. The community comes together every night for the movies. Like I said, people are meeting their wives. They're basically probably having,
Well, you see the guy with the couple having sex in the theater.
There's that prostitute that's more figures in the 3-hour version than the 2-hour version.
Also, you see that one couple where the guy looks up at the girl on the balcony, and then later they're sitting together,
Right.
and then years later they're with a kid,
right?
They have a little kid.
And the idea that it's also a primer on film and film projection and film, how film went from, because at one point there's a fire because the film is so flammable, and they give us a primer on how to project film and that whole thing, and that idea, that thing that he does, which I thought was just fantastic. The idea is that the whole point of the movie was they're cutting out the priest who runs the town, basically, is having the projectionist cut all the kissing scenes or any scenes that he finds immoral out of the film. He does that thing where he rings the bell, and the guy takes a piece of paper off the thing and he puts it in the reel, and as the reel's coming around, he can keep marked where that scene is, and then he eventually ends up cutting it.
I thought it was so gracious of the priest to take that upon himself, to
I
put himself through that.
The priest owned the theater. I think the church owned the theater.
Yeah.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah. So the church owned it in the beginning, and that's why it was regulated by the priest. But then, after the fire happened, the guy that won the lottery bought it.
Right.
Yeah, which at first, I was like, why did they put this guy winning the lottery in this? And then I realized that was because he's gonna buy it later. And he's the one that decided to add in all the kissing, and that led to adding all the sex, and that led to adding all the kids jerking off in the theater.
No, we don't use the term jerking off. We call it Louis C.K.ing.
There you go.
I shouldn't really get into name drop on that because I don't know him personally.
We all take bets on how many times Sean's going to bring up Louis C.K. in any podcast. There you get the first one. So I mean, it is a coming of age, but it's also how the whole town is dealing with the fact that fathers aren't coming home because the kid had no father. Mm-hmm. So he looks up to this guy who's the projectionist, and his relationship with that.
Yeah, let's give the names. It's Alfredo is the projectionist,
and the kid's name was Toto.
Toto, right? Mm-hmm. But it's Salvador Davida, and Alfredo. I don't think he's ever given it. I don't know if he's given a last name, but it's the key relationship of the film for the most part. Depending on what version you see, and but this is a wonderful slice of life as a village. And one thing I loved about Italian cinema, 60s, 70s, and even a later film like this is that, oftentimes Pasolini would shoot the film silent. Because they were going to be voiced for the international market anyway, and they mainly picked a lot of great faces in the Italian cinemas. In fact, the look was often more important than the talent, and I think this is a film that there's a lot of people with a lot of great looks. You just look at their faces and you know the character just by looking at it. But I have a question for Hassan. Mm-hmm. Did you watch it in English or did you watch it in Italian?
I watched it in Italian. I watch it in Italian every time. This is actually the first Italian movie that I saw. And I always talked about how much I would love to visit Italy, and how I just love the Italian language, but I've never actually. It wasn't until this movie that I realized, wow, can't wait to visit Italy, for real.
You watched it in Italian, but didn't look at the subtitles, or you were there subtitles on what you watched, or you just watched it?
You watched it with the subtitles.
No, I just guessed what they were saying.
Oh, well, I'm asking the question. So you didn't watch it in Italian. You were watching the subtitles. Okay.
I watched it in Italian with
subtitles.
Because I don't feel so bad now because I'm looking at the subtitles. But
yeah,
I mean, and your point about the faces, the corniness of this movie is how he lovingly looks at all the faces. Mm-hmm. And it's like
it's nostalgia.
It's all corny, corny nostalgia. But that's how you think of things when you think back. That's how you.
Yeah, but even if you look at like a Fellini film like Amarcord, which was also essentially about, I think that was pre-war, where it's a village essentially. It has the same kind of nostalgia and some cynicism in it too as well. I mean. But so more cynicism, I suppose, in the later version. But but I really loved this movie. I know I didn't necessarily like Hassan's earlier pick of Birdman, but Hassan has really redeemed himself in my eyes when he picked this movie, and it's really funny because I saw this film in the theaters. I saw it twice, like in 2 days, because. I saw the film once. I didn't know about the 3-hour version when I saw the film at the Charles Theater in Baltimore. Didn't know about the 3-hour version. And we went out afterwards and we were talking. It's like he sees and the person, one of the people says, he sees the girl at the end. I go, what do you mean at the end? He goes, during the credits. During the credits, the last shot is him seeing the girl again. I'm like, what shot? So I went and saw the movie again and watched it, just to see the credits. I mean, I loved the movie. I was glad to see it again. And you see him, he's like in a liquor store, and he like turns around, and he has like the adult Toto, and he has like this wide-eyed look, but they don't cut to the girl. They show an old picture of the girl from all the shots in that end title sequence were all from the movie that we saw, except that final shot where he's like in the liquor store and he turns around, or bar, or I don't know what he was in. But so I thought, oh, that was cool. He actually sees the girl at the end. I wonder what happened. Well, I guess in the 3-hour version, you find out.
Yeah, you can ask me about what happened.
What happened?
Okay,
it's not corny at all.
Well, before we go there, I would say, unless Hassan wants to jump, basically, Toto as a boy, I guess he's probably about 5 or 6 years old when the film starts, and it's probably like 1948 because his father was still missing in Russia. And the Russians kept the World War II prisoners for a really long time. Some didn't get released to their home countries until like the early 50s. So it was not unusual to think that his father was still alive. But so he has this relationship. He loves the movies, and he really befriends the projectionist who lets him up in the booth eventually. And they become great friends, and he's a mentor. And so their relationship grows until he teaches Toto how to work the projectors and all. And eventually, after a disaster, Toto becomes even though he's a child, becomes the projectionist. And later, as a teenager, he's still, the projectionist is a father figure, and he falls in love with a girl, and Toto falls in love with this girl that he starts taking movies of and all. And the romance that works out tragically in this version of the movie, and the girl just sort of like dumps him. And Alfredo, the projectionist, just says, Toto had just done his military service. Go to Rome. Don't come back here. Never come back to this town. You'll never accomplish anything here. Just move on. And he's like, if you ever come back, don't talk to me. I don't want to see you. I don't want to ever talk to you again. I want to talk about you. So he's like inspires the kid to go to Rome, and he never comes back because the film opens in the present day, where his mother, Toto's mother, is trying to reach him, to tell him that Alfredo had died, and Toto's sister's like, oh, he won't remember, he won't care, he never comes back to the town.
He hasn't been here in 30 years.
Yeah, he hasn't been here in 30 years. But of course, in the end of the movie, he does come back for Alfredo's birthday, and he stayed away.
Not for his birthday.
I mean, it's birthday. Sorry,
same thing, right?
Happy
funeral, birthday, kind of the same.
His death day.
So he comes back, and he comes back to the funeral, and now he gets the full sense of nostalgia, and we have spoilers, and in a great gift from his benefactor, his friend, his father figure. As Hassan mentioned, that the priest would make him cut all the kisses out of the film, that Alfredo had cut them all together and put them on a reel and given them, and had that reel given to Toto after his death, and Toto goes back to Rome, and he finally sees all the kisses that had cut out, and it's a great nostalgic moment, a great love of cinema moment, and I would love to see some of those films, some of those Italian films,
but also that love theme that comes up.
Yeah,
is a famous,
a great score by Ennio Morricone too. This is a really great sentimental score, and I know I cut many things in when I was doing shows and editing. I've edited many things to that main theme.
Well, that's what everybody remembers about the film is two things: the ringing of the bell, cut him, and then the big scene at the end where he shows all the scenes together as his last, and that's the tearjerker part of the movie. I mean, when you're watching it, that's what gets you. Now, the other stuff about the kind projectionist that helps him, who goes blind from a fire from film, right? The film blows up after he's projecting it in the courtyard,
which is a great scene too.
Great scene.
Yeah.
Attento. Abracadabra. Guarda dall'altra parte. Affacciati alla finestra e guarda, ragazza.
Alfredo è bellissimo!
Da via! Un cinematografo!
Bravo Alfredo!
And then he goes blind from the fire, and now he can see more, right? That whole, I can see more. And which is why he's saying, just get out of here. Don't come back because you'll never amount to anything here. And he was right.
I thought that was great advice.
Right? But if you watch the 3-hour film,
things are a little dark.
Well, Joe can tell us. What's his name? The projectionist's name?
Alfredo.
I never remember. Alfredo had a different... He did something else to him that also affected his life.
Well, and I'm not sure how much. I mean, I know there were certain parts that I saw in the 3-hour version, but part of it was so Toto comes back to town. So we're talking, 2/3 of the way through the 3-hour film. He comes back in for Alfredo's funeral, and he sees Elena.
Yeah.
And actually, he looks her up.
Elena, wait a second. Elena is the girl that broke his heart.
Right.
Who would abandon him. He could never hear from her again.
His teenage crush.
Right.
Yeah.
But what actually happens is he calls her up, and she picks up the phone, and he saw her with in the car with his best friend or a friend of his.
The kid that with the chalkboard, the nun kept hitting him on the chalkboard.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's who she ends up. That's who she ends up marrying.
Fantastic. That's
what?
This movie is just getting better and better.
And the girl he sees is their daughter, who looks just like.
Yeah, because it's the same actress.
Right, same actress, but it's in the movie it's her daughter,
right.
And she ends up marrying that guy that kept getting his head because he didn't know 5 times 5.
Yeah. Right.
25. Remember that?
And then he gets Christmas.
Right.
Yeah, Macaulay.
Right.
So he calls her, and she says, I don't want to see you, because he says, let's get together, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to see you, And then they wind up getting together, and then they go out.
So she rejects him when he first makes his first overture to her.
Yes. And then because she's got 2 kids, she's married, So then they meet up, they get together, they're in this car parked. It looked like it was at some sort of dock or something. I don't know. They wind up having sex, but before then, which you don't see,
in the
it's
car?
just alluded to. Yes,
Salvatore.
I know.
Toto.
So what happens is though, she tells him first that Alfredo had said to her, she had gone to, because he says to Elena, Toto says to Elena, well, you never came for that date, like when he was waiting for the bus that she was supposed to show up at the cinema.
Before he went into the army.
Before he went into the army for 10 days, which turned into over a year. Yeah. And she said, I did show up. I came late because she had an argument with her father and her parents didn't want her with him. So she got to the cinema late. and Alfredo was still there running the movie, which how he was doing that, I don't know, because he's blind at this point, but whatever. And she said, and Alfredo told her, you have to leave him, let him go. If you don't, he will stay here. If he goes, he should be a famous director. This is what he should do. But if you stay with him, he will never leave here. And he will never pursue what he really should do. Well, Toto didn't know this his whole life. I mean, the rest of his life. He had no idea. He just thought
it was her.
His father figure.
Exactly. His father figure. And because Alfredo was blind, Elena said, you know how they would post all the receipts from all the movies, canisters all over the walls? Well, she wrote a note to Toto and posted it up there, which basically said, meet me here or call my friend's house and she'll get in touch with me and we can potentially run away together. We'll figure it out, blah, blah, blah. Alfredo didn't tell him about the note. Nothing. So I get this whole other side of Alfredo, which makes me not like Alfredo. I wanted to like Alfredo.
Except he wasn't wrong.
Yeah, he had to let go.
If
of
he
his
had
past.
stayed, he was right. If he had stayed,
and what
I
about
understand that it's kind of like, behind the back sinister, but he was right.
But it was
he
really,
doesn't have to. He's playing God in Toto's
that's
life.
the thing. It really was
He's
Toto's choice. And then at the end, so he sleeps with Elena. Did you see the 3-hour version?
I didn't see the 3-hour version.
Okay, so he sleeps with Elena. Then he calls her and says, we have to, let's figure something out. And she said, no. She said, last night was like a dream. Just let it be. We have to go on with our lives, blah, blah, blah. And he is just crushed all over again. So the point is, I understand where you're coming from, Ralph, that, if he hadn't left the town, he wouldn't have become the director. But it comes down to it really should have been his choice. Right.
But he comes back in the 2-hour version and he sees the cinema all like at ruins and everybody's like older.
Everybody's age,
and like,
right?
Everything's
can't.
like more
The idea is you can't go
and
home.
he kind of has this look on his face like
But
it's all past him now, and the crushing down of the Cinema Paradiso is like him letting go because he had this look on his face that he was like that he was about to buy it or something. And then repurpose or like
does
bring
that
it
come
back
before?
For a second.
That's what I was about to ask. Does the cinema come down before or after he has sex with Elena?
After.
Okay.
But right before they knock it down.
But she's not in the audience when they knock the theater down? She's not there with them? Because
No.
I didn't see spot her.
Her daughter was, and her daughter's laughing.
Okay.
And But one of the things that happens in the 3-hour one is Toto runs back to the theater after Elena tells him, I put that note up, and he's ripping down all these all the receipts off the wall, and there's dust, and he finds the year of the one, and he's looking through it, and he finds her note.
Wow.
And it's just even more crushing to him because, again, you're right. He wouldn't have become the director. He wouldn't have. Well, we don't know if he.
But that was
left.
the love of his life. That's the one thing.
That's the one bottom
And he's looking
line.
at her in the
Because
Super
he's
8
never
film.
married, as the mother says.
Right.
Every time
Right.
she calls, a
Right.
different
There's
girl.
a different girl, right?
And she
None
can
of
tell
their
that there's
voices.
no love in their voice.
So no matter
Right.
all the success, he's never going to be happy because he lost the love of
Exactly.
his life.
Because then at
Happiness
the
is
end, he
overrated, honestly.
What?
Happiness is overrated.
Well,
You're too young
you're
to say
cynical,
that.
Yeah.
When you're my age, you can
But
say
okay,
that.
in that. But, so does the scene at the end with the kissing scene ends both movies, right?
Yes.
So
yeah,
so
the
does
It
that
ended
does that
yeah.
make it more poignant or less poignant? Seeing the kissing scene at the end of the
For
3
me,
hour?
I didn't find it as poignant as I think I would have if I had seen the shorter one, because you already find out Alfredo betrayed him, so to speak. He's not going to hook up with the love of his life because she's moved on. He's depressed. He goes back to Rome. All these people are telling him, the woman's telling him, well, you've won an award. We found out, blah, blah, blah. And he just looks so despondent. So even from my perspective, watching that part of it and watching him get choked up, I couldn't have the feeling that I would have had
It's funny, yeah.
if I hadn't seen what Alfredo had done.
Well, here's the thing, because the kissing in the film is the culmination of the relationship between Alfredo
Yeah.
and Toto.
Right.
But now that the relationship with Elena plays out, suddenly the relationship with Toto and Alfredo is, in a sense, a little secondary, and it's darker.
It makes
Exactly.
I mean, he's looking at it
did.
differently. He's up there going, "What?" It's a whole different take on his, because you're looking at his reaction to the film.
Yeah.
As a
Right.
movie watcher, I'm watching that Toto look at the screen with his.
Yeah.
Now, between the two versions, it has two totally different. Could be two
Exactly.
totally different
From-
meanings.
I would think from the version you all watched, it would be more
Nostalgic.
happiness,
Oh, yes, I
was.
nostalgic.
Yes,
Where the
See
one
how it
I
all
watched,
pays
He's
off.
angry. What did he
he's
do?
all choked up.
I saw
and
the
it's
exact same look on
because-
his face as when he was a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking at those
and
clips,
I
but
did
I could
not.
see.
I saw it as
could see
he was
him-
upset at
Right.
what he had lost.
Right.
I could
Yeah.
see him looking at it after that happening and thinking, "Wow, all this time you've just been editing all these clips instead of giving me this one note."
And,
that I
yeah,
Instead of
instead
giving
of
me some
telling
real
me
sex.
that she didn't leave me.
Yeah.
And they even made a remark like, "We never slept together back then, but we did last night." And
Ding, ding, ding. Sorry.
so
Oh, is that
I
is
would.
that a name?
Well,
Okay.
I think every time we mention him having sex with Elena, we got to ring the
Why
bell.
don't we just ring throughout the whole podcast, Sean?
Well, no one's doing any name
This
dropping.
reminds me of like when I was a
Furiously unread.
little girl and you went up to the meat counter and they were,
Well, that's Well, it's the same thing, but
yeah.
you're taking away the power of the bell if we ring it every time.
Here's another question, because it's funny that this is coming up, because when I watched the film Tuesday night, and I watched it with my wife, we had seen it before. First we watched, and I watched it twice, first in Italian, then in English.
Oh wow!
Wait,
There you
English
go.
dubbed?
Yeah, they dubbed it.
There's
yeah.
the
Oh, I can't
there's
do
the
that.
dubbed
I
can't
English.
do that.
That gets on my nerves.
I'd
It
rather
was
do
too late at
subtitles.
I
night
wanna
for my
punch
wife
everybody.
to watch in the
Subtitles. Subtitles.
can't.
But it's so funny that, because we had seen this movie before when we were taking Italian lessons, my wife and I. But when Alfredo's wife tells him, his last words was "never tell him," my wife turned to me and she says, "What's that about?" And the thing is, I had seen the movie in the theaters before, and that didn't strike me as anything. But I'm like, yeah, what is that about? And then you look at the scene when he's watching Elena on this old projector on the 16 millimeter, and his mother's looking at the door, and the mother is very sad. The mother looks guilty.
I saw that.
And I'm sitting there thinking, and those two little things made me think, I'm missing something here.
Well,
You
the
know,
thing
but
is-
it didn't strike me when I first saw the movie in the theater twice. It did not. Neither of
Well,
those
because
things
you were
really-
seeing the 2-hour version. There's a reason.
Yeah, but
right?
what I'm saying is, it's funny that I watching it this week,
It's all
before I even
context.
knew that there
Right.
was a 3-hour version, I sensed that there was that we're not seeing the whole story here.
Well,
so
when-
did the
when
mother?
he said-
Did the mother know? The mother had to know, because Elena lived in the town.
Well, when he said never tell him, I thought Alfredo meant never tell him that I died, because he didn't want him coming back at all.
See, I think that's probably what I thought when I originally saw the film, but it didn't strike me that way this time.
Also, I wasn't sure if the person in the doorway was Alfredo's wife or his mom, because they look
It was his mom.
okay.
Both of them
Because
are
he was in his
co-conspirators.
childhood bedroom.
Yeah.
By the way, Toto's mom beat
he wasn't
the crap
in it
out
when
of
he
him.
was looking at
Yeah.
At the
the
film,
I like how she's-
Elena, yeah.
Oh, okay.
That poor
Yes.
kid was getting beat.
Yeah, he was. She'd slap
I
him in
know.
just the weirdest
Yeah.
way possible.
I
You should have seen
know.
the way my mom hit me.
Really?
That was
Same.
nothing.
But she wasn't hitting him with the hand. She's hitting him with the arm and the elbow. It's
Yeah.
like she was hitting him like a girl. So.
All right, I'm out of
What,
here.
girl
But first,
fight?
I'm
What
going
does
to
that
beat the
mean?
crap
Yeah.
out of all of you.
Wait, she's gonna
But
pull our
you-
hair.
You
Well,
asked
one of the
me-
reasons Wojo is here is because I put the first podcast up, and she goes, "What you guys really need
Yeah.
is a
We know.
woman on
We
there."
know.
Well,
Yeah.
what I said is,
Same.
where's the female perspective? And I was just being a smart aleck. I really
Yeah.
didn't expect to get invited, but hey, you
We
know.
can't get anybody to come on with us. You're the first. That's awesome. Maybe
Well,
now.
no, I told,
maybe
I
now
told
it's
her
actually-
about, I told her about somebody.
No, because I'll tell everybody. They made me watch the 3-hour version. It was totally
Made you?
depressing.
Cool.
But you
I
asked
am
me,
so glad- yeah,
did
what-
his mom know? In the 3-hour version, they didn't allude to the fact that she knew that. She expressed, probably longer than in the 2-hour version, her disappointment for him. And said, you never found love, you never, and she did talk about, I pick up and I pretend that I recognize these women's voices and know who they are. And she said, that makes me sad for you. But they never did say if his sister found anyone.
Well, Elena, the sister seemed to be living at home with mom.
Exactly.
But it seems Elena lived in the town, so the mother would have
Yeah.
known who she was.
Well,
Mother would
but she
have
wouldn't-
known.
But
Not
she
really.
wouldn't have known necessarily what Alfredo did.
Yeah, she wouldn't necessarily know that, but she would know, like, And I don't think Toto would ever ask about her.
But
you know
Toto
what I mean?
hadn't talked to her for 30 years. Or
Well, no, he would talk to her,
Oh,
but
he
she would
talked
go.
to her.
He never went to town anytime
right,
she needed to see him.
Right.
And also, he bought that nice house that they were living in because
Yeah.
he's saying, "Yeah, we did this." Anytime she needed to see him, she went to went to Rome.
Right.
So he had a relationship with her. He just didn't have a relationship with the
and
town.
she probably didn't bring up Elena because, by that time she came back, exactly, would she, put the knife in and twist it a little bit,
No, that would be Alfredo. No, just kidding.
Well, the other thing they didn't, the 3 that was in the 3-hour version as opposed to the 2 hours. So he goes in the confessional booth with Elena.
Mm-hmm.
That was in the 2 hour.
Right. But he says, I'm nervous because this is my first time.
Yeah.
In the 3-hour version, the prostitute takes care of that before he meets Elena.
Yes.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
When in the movie does the prostitute take care of that?
Somewhere in the 3-hour.
Before he goes to war, before he goes in the service.
So really, he's already
And before
dating
he
her.
really meets Elena. He's not dating the prostitute. He
No, he's
just
just-
No,
screws
what
the
I'm saying is
prostitute. Can I say
so-
screw? It's too late.
No, you said it.
Yeah.
That's not safe.
We're
for
assuming-
anyone,
I'll
actually.
never be invited back on
We're
here
assuming
again.
that's what he did.
No, so
Oh, no, they
essentially
showed
before.
you.
Oh, they did.
They showed you what he did.
Oh, okay. So this before he started dating Elena.
Because she was even making comments. She said, now you're a man. And she said, actually, you're a bull. And I was like, oh, ew.
See, that's what I mean. Such Italian. Such a-
Salvatore.
Salvatore.
Well, because he had, I don't know if this
He's
was in the
Ferdinand.
3-hour. Did you see, was in the 2-hour, was it where the guy who owned the theater tried to have 2 theaters at once? Was that in the 2-hour?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there was some, in
They
the
had-
3-hour, there was some sex thing going on with that.
Right. And
Didn't-
it's
no,
not in the 2-hour?
not in the 2-hour.
Okay. So the other guy who's working with Toto at the other theater, like he'd take
the
the
bike.
first reel and ride the bike. And he would exchange the reels, and he wasn't getting back. So Toto goes out for him because everyone's like screaming
yeah,
and
you know
yelling
that
and
scene
everything.
in this version ends with them before they get the second reel.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, well, what
In the
happens
2
is Toto gets on the bike and starts riding across the countryside, and he sees the friend's bike and the reel laying in the grass. And he goes over, and somewhere down there, the guy is having sex with the prostitute. And he doesn't say, like, go away. He's like, this is really great, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, seriously?
It is Italian.
And I think that's the guy that ends up marrying the girlfriend. That's the guy that
Oh,
got.
ooh, really?
Yeah, I think so. That's the kid on the
Okay.
bike.
He
was his
marries
friend.
Elena?
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah,
And he
the
gets
guy
into
that's getting his.
politics.
Yeah, you're right.
He becomes a politician.
Yeah, and his father was a policeman and said, I want you to
Of course,
be.
those
Yeah.
All
politicians.
right, so all this sex and all. Here's what I got out of this film. My simple brain got that what this showed me is how important movie theaters were to everybody. The community, when you go see a movie in a situation like that, a comedy, whatever it is, if you're in a movie theater, it takes on a whole different feeling than if you're sitting here watching it at home, right?
Yeah.
I can remember every important movie in my life. I know the theater I went and saw it at. I'm sure you
Same
do
here.
it all the time in your blogs. You're constantly telling us where. And I think that's what this evoked for me was, okay, it does show how important film is to people, movies, and how it affects your whole life. And I can remember exactly where I was sitting when I saw Jaws for the first time. Whatever the movie is, you pick the movie, I know where it was. Whether it's a drive-in movie theater or whatever the theater is, I can tell you exactly where I was on that day
Same
when I
here.
saw that movie. And that kind of, obviously that's the overall thing in this one. And
The meta thing.
he hit it hard with the kids masturbating in the front.
Louis C.K.ing.
Okay, there's 2. The mafia guy who gets killed in the middle of a movie. I mean, that guy, I thought he had a heart
Yeah.
attack. No, somebody killed him. Either
Yeah.
knifed
No,
him.
really?
ripped
Well,
him.
because there
They
was a
showed the gun.
backfire on
Yeah.
the screen.
They showed
and
the
they
gun.
shot him at the
Right,
same
they waited
time.
for the
Oh, man,
backfire.
I have missed everything in it. How many times have I seen this film?
So there's all this stuff going on in that movie theater that affects everybody.
Yeah.
And I just walked away. All that other stuff. And the thing at the end with the when he puts all this stuff together, that's when I was gone.
Yeah.
See, I wish I had seen the 2-hour because I didn't come away with that.
Right. Well,
I came away with more the betrayal and the loss of love and the sadness of the whole thing. And like I said, when he was choked up in the theater, I was seeing it as he lost his love, he got betrayed by his friend. I'm happy.
I don't believe that he didn't fall in love once since Elena. That doesn't really
Well, we're
fly
taking
with
his
me. I
mother's
don't
word for it.
well,
suppose like
Mama knows.
yeah. Why? If you lost the love of your life and you're always trying to attain, You know, it's you're never going to get it. Like
Chasing the Dragon. They call
Chasing
it
the Dragon, or
heroin
whatever
addiction.
it is. I mean, I can see that, and it's funny how it takes a totally different feeling on that end scene, just from, you know, a couple of scenes that he added.
Yeah, well, just just structurally. I mean, because it's resolving their, the end of the film should be the one that was the most emotionally important to him, and I guess Toto and Alfredo was, but by adding this third act complication like that, it really threw the balance of what we experienced as a 2-act film, as a 2-hour film. It really. I'm glad I didn't see it.
I was going to say, I would highly recommend, if you want to like this movie, don't watch the 3-hour version. Seriously.
Yeah. Well, obviously that's what happened, because like I said, he put it out first,
right.
The 3-hour. Nobody liked it.
Yeah.
So they made him cut it down.
And it was an autobiographical film for him, too, he said. It was highly autobiographical.
So can you imagine trying to cut that stuff out?
Yeah.
I mean, it was painful. And then it goes to Cannes and wins that. Then it wins the Oscar. What's he going to say now?
Yeah.
Right? He was
you idiots.
But it does show you how it can change the whole tenor of the film.
Yeah.
And people's experience with that film. Mm-hmm. I mean, you had a completely different experience than us who saw the 2-hour. And knowing that other stuff, even knowing that, shades how I'm watching it now.
Yeah.
That you know that Alfredo was going to pull this off. And the way he's looking at that screen at the end takes a whole different meaning for me if I think he's upset that Alfredo did that, not that he's watching this missing Alfredo.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly.
Right? So,
exactly. And like I said, I didn't know until this morning
that
there was a 2 and a 3-hour version. So
I didn't know that the 3-hour version was readily
that was what was at the library, so that's what I got. So.
Wow, you have a pretty good library. I think you got Spanish Prisoner. No, you found that on.
No, I
sorry,
that.
I couldn't.
I don't know
find
of
that.
any other. I don't know of any other film we're reviewing.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So,
for instance,
but I tell you what, I really love this movie. We had a local theater here, just a couple blocks from where I live, called the Arcade, and I think the first film I saw was not at the Arcade. It was The Jungle Book, the original release. So it was at 65. But by the time I was probably 8 years old, my mother has let me go to the movies alone, So, I mean, I spent a vast amount of time at the Arcade. I mean, that was like my home away from home. It's probably why I'm in the film business. So, I mean, that really resonated to me, Am I
what,
talking?
the film business? We're going to bring the film business?
No. Oh, I thought he was motioning for me to get closer to the mic.
Enough with the bell.
No. But what I'm saying, so this was great, and my sorrow when the theater first closed, our theater here was always a second-run theater, so when my parents wanted to see a new movie that was coming out, we would go to the Timonium Drive-In, which was a first-run theater, and we'd see it there. And then it would show up down here in Hamilton about like 8 months later, because the theaters had a more platformed release back then. So I would see it there. We'd see the new Planet of the Apes films, and 8 months later we'd see them here. And the movie experience was so much different back then in the neighborhood theaters. There were a lot of double features, like the Arcade. I see the Crowded Theater and Cinema Paradiso on like Halloween, they would always show the movie Destroy All Monsters, with like all the Godzilla and all, and it would show it for free, and the theater would be so packed that it was a fire threat because people would be in every seat and up and down the aisle sitting on the thing and then in the front before there, and it was such a great experience. One day they showed 6 films. And they were all horrible. A couple of them ended up on Mystery Science Theater, but this was part of the great experience. So that the great experience of film, and that's what spoke to me. But also the Elena relationship. The way he stood out in front of the house,
stalking her.
Well,
that was dumb.
You announced
shooting
her,
with the.
Well, I did something similar with
She backlit beautifully, but
I did something similar to my first girlfriend. I didn't stalk her.
Similarly a stalker?
Well, no, I am not confessing to stalking, but she lived across the street from. I was extremely shy as a kid, and it's hard to believe now. But I used to walk by her house every day for like 2 years. It wasn't like I was looking at her windows or everything, but like once every month she'd be out front or something, and we'd talk, or she'd just wave and I'd wave back, but eventually, I kept walking by her house until she essentially asked me out. So, it took years to do that.
There was a story Alfredo told him about the soldier that stood outside for 99
99
nights.
days out of 100.
Yeah, out of 100. And I don't think he actually grasped the full story, because I feel like the theme of the story was on the 99th day, the soldier realized this isn't worth it. I don't need the 100th day. Like, I'm not going to put myself through this just so I could, like, for someone that's not willing to give me the time of day or the time of 100 days. And that's why he left on the 99th day. And I don't think Salvatore grasped that idea.
Yeah, and he threw that. You know, he made that as a decision. You know, he took that as a positive thing because he essentially offered.
Yeah, he was
offered
like, "I'll stand out every night."
Yeah, I'll
stand. Didn't he do that with her? He was waiting outside. Yeah, he was waiting outside
until the window almost opened and it closed on New Year's, and he was.
But
upset.
the point was what? That you should just go. Don't wait 99 days. Don't wait one day.
Yeah,
nothing's worth it. Get out of here. Is what
I don't understand. You know, but was that the part? Because Alfredo did not explain that to him. He told the story as if he didn't know what the moral of the story was.
Well, why would? Isn't that what the point of those stories are?
Well, you see that a lot in Italian films where people tell stories and then someone else figures it out later.
There's a reason for it, though.
Yeah.
I mean, like that. Well, at least that's the thing I got from it, and I think it ties in with what he said about you have to get out of here. Like,
well, I think that was his point.
Yeah,
it's like it's not worth waiting. You need to go. You're on to bigger and better things.
And that's something like I fantasized about all the time. Was just leaving and like leaving home. Essentially, I always feel like that's what you need to grow, to expand. It's just like you gotta leave your safety net, you gotta leave your hometown, kind of thing.
How's that going now?
You know, it's going
you have to leave scheduling.
That's why I said I fantasize about it. Okay.
Well, I will say that I have lived within about a half a mile my entire life, within different houses within a half a mile a year. So, but I have seen the world, and I have worked in New York. I've worked in Los Angeles, but I always come back here to what's the name of the same? It's not Giancarlo. That's a name, but it was close to it. I forgot what the name of the town was that he was in. And really, technically speaking, they're not Italians. They were Sicilians.
Yeah.
You know, some people in Italy view that as a distinction.
We'll go back in and edit the Italian to Sicilian.
Well, it's funny because
I'm Italian. I should know this. I have no clue what you're talking about.
No, a lot of there's a lot of provincial rivalries in Italy. And one thing, one of my cousins is in the film business in Italy, and I'm going to have to ask him, by looking at the film, when they're talking in that film, are they talking in classic Italian or are they talking in a Sicilian dialect? You know, because even in the village where my people are from, the older people speak in the local dialect, but they teach the classic Italian in the schools. So, and when I was in Italy and I went to a town in the north with one of my cousins who had pretty good grasp of Italian, you know, we were in this village late at night, kind of trapped, and that person could not understand her Italian. He could not understand hers.
Yeah.
And this is Denisa, Denisa, my cousin.
Yeah.
And she ended up having to speak to the guy in French.
Oh, wow. Well, I was going to say I studied French all through college, and so when my husband and I, if we watch French films, this is where it's paid off, people. Okay, listen. All right, my 7 semesters of French. This is what it's paid off. When we watch a French film and the subtitle comes up every once in a while, I'll say, that's not exactly what they said.
Well, I took 3 years of German, and then I found out about the Holocaust. I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll give up on this language. Boy, the Germans were bastards, weren't they? So.
Who taught German? They taught German in high school?
Well, in my high school, you could either take Spanish, French, or German. And they're like, Spanish is the easiest, French is the hardest. I'm like, well, I don't want to go for the easy one. So I should have talked to Spanish because that's essentially the same as Italian. And so I took the German. It seemed to be the middle road.
The most beautiful language in the world.
Yeah. I had an aunt from Thailand, and she said the beautiful thing about Thai is you couldn't spit in the language while you're talking, even if you tried, because of the way you formed the words. But she hated being in Germany. She goes, because they spit everything they say. They're spitting on you.
They do that on purpose.
Germans, they just might have been spitting on her. No offense to Al.
Who's in Germany?
Who just came back from Germany.
He just came back from Germany.
I did.
See,
and I like to say that German is a beautiful language, if spoken properly. But if you're going guttural and rolling the R's, it might not sound so pleasant.
Yes,
that mic sounds awful.
Some people Some people might end up with
Is that
water
Mike
on
German?
them.
It's an
I'm glad
unpleasant
you
microphone.
said that. I was thinking.
I know enough German to embarrass people.
I have one question, and I don't know if this was in the. This is probably in the 2-hour version. He talked about Alfredo. I think talked about how the film changed. Because he had Toto, he said, which side has the gelatin?
Yeah,
And Toto
this
licks
has
it.
listen,
And, okay, great. But one of the things he said was, now the film will no longer catch... Oh, it had to be after the fire.
Yeah.
Now the film will no longer catch on fire. But I'll tell you, in 1995, because I have a really weird good memory, my husband and I were over at White Marsh Movies, and the film caught on fire. And we got to see the thing melt away from the center, and then it took them like half an hour to fix things, and then they gave us free passes to see the movie again, which we
I think
did.
that is different than the way film used to catch on fire. If you watched Inglourious Bastards, there's a whole thing about how film used to be made with nitrate, I think it is.
nitrate.
And it's so flammable, it's like it catches, right?
Okay.
They wouldn't even let, according to that movie, they wouldn't let guys who were carrying rolls of film get on trolley cars in San Francisco because they were worried about them catching on fire. That's different than a film burn, which is probably what you saw.
Right.
But so that's what he was saying. That's
I have to say it was worth the price of admission. It was really cool
to see. But then you have to sit and wait for them to splice it back together, get it back in the projector.
It's funny. Like they give you a pass, but one thing you don't do. I used to, in the mall theaters. I don't know if you're allowed to do it, but we used to just sit and watch a film twice, or we'd get there late and then and then they'd start it and you'd watch the beginning of it again or something.
I think that's
they don't let you do that anymore.
They actually have. There's security guards that walk around now to see if you're gonna sneak from one movie to another.
Yeah, but I think
that
you should be,
lot.
once you pay, you should be able to see it.
There was like a couple of days when I was younger where I would go to the theater and I would just jump from one movie to another. I think I saw like 3 movies in a day a couple of times, and then I realized it's about 6 hours of my life right there.
Well spent, Hassan. Well spent.
6 hours of movies for $8. Yeah.
Well, I didn't pay that, but I saw when the last Batman came out, they did that special where they showed all 3 movies back to back. It was awesome.
And that's like 9 hours because those movies are long.
It was 2.5 each, right? Something like that, 2 hours. So it was great. And I don't do that very often, but that was a fun night.
I grew up in Highlandtown, the area of Highlandtown now called Brewers Hill. Yeah. So I used to go. I know it means you can tack $100,000 onto it.
Exactly. Highlandtown doesn't exist anymore. Everything's either Brewers Hill or Canton.
Yeah, or Greektown. Yeah.
Is this Baltimore? You guys are talking
Yes.
about? Okay.
Yes.
It's like this working class neighborhood where they're giving like higher class names to it so that they can charge more for the
they're
house.
selling that's a whole other podcast called Selling Your Home. But I would go to the Grand Theater, which was so gorgeous. I was so heartbroken when they knocked it down, even though they built a wonderful library there on the whole block. But I had at one point when I was in high school, we had friends who worked there. So the guy at the ticket booth knew us, the 2 managers knew us, the people who work. So we would just get in for free all the time, and we would go up on the balconies. I don't even know if any movie theaters have balconies anymore.
Those were the best.
And we could just, I don't want to know. Yeah. And you could just see it from a whole different perspective.
Yeah.
The Uptown Theater still has balconies on Connecticut Avenue.
I used to like.
That's a nice theater.
I love the Uptown. I would literally drive down from Baltimore to see a nice widescreen movie at the Uptown.
That's a nice place to see it.
That's weird. It's like I've driven to New York to see movies.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what this movie evoked for me, is how important the movie theater experience is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and was, because that's how they got their news too. If you notice in some of those clips, they were showing the news clips that were coming about the war.
Yeah.
That they didn't want to see. Right. They were gonna get through this. Let's go. Let's get to the comedy. Do whatever. And that's how before even my generation, they were going to the movies to see newsreels
because they didn't have televisions.
Television, so there was a shared experience. You go out once a week, whatever it was.
I mean, did they talk about that did they show that transition in the 2-hour version where they went from, at one point in the cinema, they were kind of watching the beginning of TV, showing it in the cinema?
Yeah.
No, they
because
mentioned
they even
it
talked about it
at the procession at the end when they're walking to when the theater gets demolished. They talk about how television, the guy who bought the theater, who was now there when he was older, said, television and all that kind of stuff, but nobody comes to the movies anymore. So they reference it in that. I mean, that's what you mean by autobiographical for your director, because he was basically saying, look, TV killed the movies.
But you never know. He may have had a romantic relationship like that, too, because he was loath to cut that stuff out.
Oh, I'm not saying, autobiographical. Who knows? Yeah. Maybe there was that perfect woman, blue-eyed woman.
Those blue-eyed ones are always the trouble.
Right.
I'm glad that I got to talk with you guys about the 2-hour version because it makes me feel a little bit better.
Yeah. Well, I'm the only one who hated this film that everyone loved.
Well, and like I said, I would not watch the 3-hour, not because it's 3 hours, just because of this whole.
I kind of want to watch the 3-hour version.
I don't know. I was going to buy it, and then I'm like, no, I like these characters.
Get it from the library.
Yeah.
Seriously.
What
get
library,
it from,
Perry Hall?
No, I got it from White Marsh.
Okay.
So I'll be taking it back.
The DVD I had both versions.
Oh, it did?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I picked
fancy.
no, it's a DVD.
Right.
I picked the
2-hour.
The original theatrical, obviously not the original, the theatrical release that made the Oscar and all that.
Mm-hmm. But I think what you've brought up a couple times about how cinema impacts our lives. I remember
who doesn't think cinematically?
I know.
I think we think cinematically.
Well, because how many times have you said to a friend, and all of a sudden this strange thing happened in my life, and I felt like, in the movie when they zoom in, when something happens. But exactly. But I remember going to the Senator years ago with my husband, and we watched Avalon. They had a special showing of it.
I might have been there that show.
And we were. I get chills thinking of it because part of it was filmed at the Senator, so we were watching the part where the kids are all in the Senator watching a movie. So I'm sitting in the Senator watching a movie of kids sitting in the Senator watching a movie. Yeah. It was just cool.
That's awesome.
You know what was weird?
That's meta.
This is let me name drop a film by director Clay Valente, Little Red, was actually shot here at my house. And there's a scene where the people see that their son had been killed on the news. The mother and sister are sitting in here. And then we're watching the movie, and we're sitting on the same sofa, watching the same television. And, people, if you ever get the opportunity to have a movie shot in your house, don't.
So, Hassan, is this a film school movie, or when did this one come into your field of vision?
This is the first foreign film that I studied in school, and we were also talking about movies in society and how it impacted society. And I think what's hit me the most was the whole censoring the movies, because growing up, my mom would always shield me away from kissing scenes or give me dirty looks when I looked at them.
Oh, that's funny.
And so I didn't even know that movies were allowed to have nude scenes in theaters for the longest time. It was just when I saw him, the way he looked at movies. When he saw all the stuff that was taken out, was this is what the movie's like when it's fully intact, this is, you're supposed to view these movies with the intention of how the director wanted you to see it, and
unless it's the 3-hour version, in which
is highly ironic, is that they censor the whole third of this movie,
and the way Miramax wants you to see it.
Right.
Well, Miramax wasn't wrong based on the financial, what they were looking for, but
Harvey Scissorhands,
and that's why he put out the director's cut, because he wants you to see what his vision was.
It makes you wonder though, does it matter? Maybe would you rather see what was intended? Does it?
No.
It doesn't always work.
In this case, I have to agree.
But it's almost like the one that was recut, the Miramax one, isn't real.
It's just as real. It's what we experience.
It's just different. It gives you a different
context,
outlook.
Yeah.
I tell you what, almost every film I've seen, I've always liked the theatrical version better than the director's cut.
When I told you I was reading about the two films that I didn't know existed, that one of the critics I read his version about, why it was better to see the Miramax cut, and he said the same thing about Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
He said, don't watch the long version. He said, sometimes it's okay to see what the director wanted, but you're not going to get the same kind of thing.
And it's heresy, but I also like the theatrical version of the original Blade Runner. But one that really makes me angry is
with the narration.
Yeah, with the narration. Mm-hmm. And I also really like the original version of the Sam Peckinpah's The Wild Bunch. Everything they added to that film was so unnecessary.
I didn't know there was a director's.
All you see now is the director's cut. The original cut was much better. It was smoother. The director's cut added some backstory scenes. You know how we love the backstory,
right?
And were so unnecessary. And they actually raised more questions than they answered. They were just so unneeded.
Well, I told you about that Payback movie, the Mel Gibson.
Yeah,
that was same idea. There was a director's version, original director's version, and then Mel Gibson's version, and they're entirely different.
Well, one film I would love to see the director's version of, and was that Nicole Kidman, Daniel Craig version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I think it was called Invasion.
Yeah,
they had the director who did the that Hitler movie, the bunker movie, the Untergang. You know, the one with, you know, that was such a great Hitler movie. You know, if you like Hitler movies, that's definitely one to go with. Who was Bruno Ganz played?
It was Downfall.
Downfall is great.
Yeah, in German it was the Untergang.
That sounds like you came in off Skype or a phone. That is amazing.
You're welcome.
You know, so he directed the
Al is at a
original
different
version.
location. Sorry, we should have told everybody that. He's actually at a different location.
He's
in a bunker.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers is a film that couldn't be destroyed. The first version was great. The 70s version with Donald Sutherland was great.
Fantastic.
Even I hate Abel Ferreira, but his version called Body Snatchers was great.
Yeah.
And then so when this one's coming out with that German director, I'm thinking, oh man, I can't wait to see it. But apparently they kicked him off once he finished his film and like spent months reshooting it, and then they have an Invasion of Body Snatchers movie with a freaking happy ending. You know, it's sort of like it's a dark film. It's a dark story. You know, that's the dark thing about it is that they're going to lose.
It gets back to, and what Matt said earlier about who's financing the film.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now I didn't realize the producer just is throwing money at it.
Yeah.
Boom. But somebody's
Some of
got
them are. Some of them are.
Right.
Yeah.
Somebody's deciding that this isn't working. I'm paying for this. I want this out or that
Yeah.
out. And who is deciding that? I mean, it's got to be the most frustrating thing. Now, in this case, it worked out for this guy.
Yeah.
They said cut it or it's not going up.
Yeah.
He cut it and he wins all the awards.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be a little bit frustrating for him.
Yeah.
Right? Because his instinct was to go the other way.
Yeah.
And it turns out this one was much better.
Well, film is a collaborative business. And everybody gives the director the auteur, but I know a lot of films I've worked on, it's really the producer or the writer or even an actor is the auteur. A lot of the films I worked on, the director is like brought in a week or two before the shoot, and so it was sort of like, it's not his vision. He's handed a script, and he shoots it, and then it comes up a film by whoever the guy's name is. And it's like, yeah, okay.
You're talking about what, television stuff? Or you talking about
some of the films I did. The directors came in.
A lot of directors for hire then?
Oh yeah, and most directors do not write their stuff. I don't know whether he wrote this movie. What's his name? Tottori? Giuseppe.
I can't remember.
I don't know Italian.
If I knew what it was, I'd probably be able to pronounce it correctly.
I don't know Italian, so I can't tell you. But I should know. You want to know who directed?
Yeah. Just one thing. If you want to be able to speak Italian or pronounce it correctly, there's one thing you have to know. GL. Whenever you hear GL, don't pronounce the G.
Giuseppe
it's like
Torrentore.
What's the first? Torrentore.
Giuseppe Torrentore.
But just pronounce the GL as if it was L, as in million. And then you'll always do fine in Italy.
That's good to know.
Okay, yeah.
And CCI is chi.
Yeah, CCI.
Not C like my
and also pronounce the I's like E's and the E's like I's. Okay. If those are the only three things you take away from this podcast. And please see this movie, but see the 2
hour version.
No, you know what? I want to see the 3. I don't know if I want to sit for 3 hours, but I wouldn't mind seeing the 3 hour version in context of seeing the first one first, right? I've got that's in my brain.
Exactly. I wish I had seen the 2 hour version first.
Yeah. See, you'll not. I don't think you'll ever enjoy the 2 hour version.
No,
the way
because
we
I
do.
can't unsee what I've seen. I can't
that's
watch things. You know what I mean? I can't see it without thinking of all the scenes that were cut.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good experiment. It's a not experiment, but that's a good. It's just great film wise that can happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That we can all have a different experience based on the 1 hour in a film.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
can
actually
make the
glad.
Whole difference.
I mean, I'm saying don't watch it, but but I'm glad I watched the 3 hour because this brought up a really interesting discussion. Like when in the beginning of the podcast, you've referred to this movie as being sort of corny.
Yeah.
Not my version of the movie at
really?
all. Not corny in the least.
Once you start having sex with the prostitute.
Yeah. Interesting. And
he wasn't just a man; he was a bull.
A bull.
Yeah.
And I was like, ew.
Well,
like the old lady who's taking like every young, good-looking guy's virginity.
Yeah. Well, they should have built the movie around her.
Well, she was just standing in the back, and she just called guys over, and
Well, but appropriately enough, he did lose his virginity in the cinema.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
That's right, with her, the prostitute.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Which
I'm glad we left
isn't
that out.
that every young boy's dream?
Yeah.
So.
There's nothing like that first love. There's nothing like that first prostitute.
All right, so I think we did a good job with this one, given there are 2 versions of this film, and it's good that we have an expert for the 3 hour version and an expert for the 2 hour version. Hassan, you picked a good movie, I think.
Thank you.
I think you did a nice job.
Don't watch the 3 hour.
Don't watch.
It will crush you.
I think you should. Do you have it on DVD?
I do. I have both versions.
Can you send it to us?
Yeah, of course.
I think I'll.
When you said send it for you mean physically hand
it.
I think he's saying, "Can I borrow your DVD?"
That's exactly what he's saying.
Right.
Absolutely.
No, there was no. We are
No.
not. We are not advocating anything but borrowing the DVD.
But actually,
Yeah,
like you said, I think with any of you who've seen just the 2 hour version, watching the 3 hour, you will be able to separate the two.
Whereas but you can't do it the other way.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting. Isn't that fascinating? That's fascinating.
Can you imagine being Giuseppe and then creating this autobiographical work and then having someone tell you, your life is too depressing, bro. Cut it down.
He won an Oscar. And
doesn't sound too depressing anymore, does it?
See, that's like interesting. He won the Oscar, but at the end of the movie, the character of Toto is being told by the assistant, one of the women who's working with him, "Oh, we've already seen you've won an award for this film," he doesn't care.
Right.
He doesn't care.
I had a similar experience.
I'm pretty sure he cares after he got the Oscar.
Oh boy.
Here we
when
go.
I wrote my book, my memoir, The Promise, or the pros and cons.
Oh my God! Let me see that.
Look at that! It has my picture on the front.
Your whole face on the front.
Yeah,
that is advertising.
If anything is going to discourage sales of a book, it's my face on the cover.
The pros and cons of talking.
Or as
God.
seen on Yippee-Ki-Yay Mother podcast.
Yeah, so
that might hurt it too.
The funny thing is, so that's a memoir to have people sitting there saying, "Okay, cut this out. It doesn't fool with the story."
Yeah, exactly.
The manuscript I ultimately that got published. I don't know how many pages the actual book is, but the manuscript that got published was 250 pages. The original that I wrote was 350 pages. So almost the same, almost a third of the book was cut out.
So
most of it was cracked.
Imagine God telling you to behold your wife.
Yeah.
Then you didn't marry her.
Yeah.
You'd probably find it somewhat disconcerting.
Yeah.
Sean Paul Murphy certainly did.
Yeah. God, I love it when they use all three of mine.
Well, as an editor, too, can you imagine if someone just let you keep cutting a film or a TV show, you would take all the time in the world.
Yeah.
You always feel like you're rushed to get it done, and you just wish you had that extra time to do. And sometimes that ruins what you've done.
Exactly.
That the first instinct is actually the right instinct. In this case, it wasn't for various other reasons. I think he probably, obviously, if he put out the director's cut, to show everybody what it was, he felt very strongly about that 3-hour version.
Yeah, he was displaying it to the public.
Commercially and financially, it turns out the 2-hour version is the one that actually made the money for everybody. It's just such an interesting business that we deal with, where you're constantly putting out creative stuff, and you're constantly being told, that's got to go, that's got to go, that's got to go. That you're constantly being compromised everywhere.
And sometimes
it's
it
amazing
might just
anything
be because
gets made.
of time.
Right. Yeah.
This is too long. No one's going to sit in a theater like most movies nowadays that are released are not much longer than 2 hours.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not good and it has to be cut, and you just can't tell because you're too close to it.
Well, there's that problem.
Yeah.
But Yeah, most movies now are getting longer, though. Don't you think that we're going beyond 2 hours?
Some, yeah.
Like this podcast?
Yeah.
How long are we are we near the end of this one?
We're within the hour. We're good. We're good. We're about up against it. We're about to shut. The satellite's about to shut down, so we got to hurry up.
Yeah.
So this is a good one.
I have to go out and clean the kitchen.
Okay. Yeah. Right. What? Not for us. Oh, for Wojo.
Yeah.
Not for us. We're fine. So barrel wise, Hassan, we rate by. Originally, this podcast was going to be Jaws theme, and we couldn't do that, so we're sticking with our yellow barrels.
Oh, okay.
Okay. 5 yellow barrels is the top prize. So Hassan, what do you give this movie?
This is a 5 for me for the 2-hour version.
5.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm going to give it a 5. I'm going to give it 5 barrels on the original, even though this time watching it, there was disconcerting. The line from Alfredo's wife and then the mother's expression made me wonder about it, which is how I found out about the 3-hour version, because I was trying to wonder what the hell was.
But you're still giving it a 5.
I'm still giving it a 5 this version because this was a very moving film.
Wojo?
I'm going to give the 2-hour version, which I have not seen, but I am sure I would have enjoyed much more. I'm going to give that 5 barrels.
Look at that.
However, the 3-hour version, I am going to give like 1.5. But no, I'd probably give it 2 barrels.
Wow.
Because it's such. It was. Yeah, I wish I had seen the movie you guys saw.
Yeah,
I really do.
You can never know.
And not because everything has to end all happy, and not because it has to be nostalgic, just because what I saw was so different.
Yeah, it's such a good experiment, though. I really do. I'm going to give it 4. I'm going to be the one. The corniness was too corny for me, and I know that's Italian. I guess it's foreign. Yeah. They really go overboard with all the quirkiness, but it's still. And I hadn't seen it in 80. This is the first time I saw it when we decided to do this. And,
you hadn't seen it before?
No. And I knew about it. I knew about the editing out of the stuff, and I knew about the scene at the end. And it's still, when it happened, when that scene came up at the end, it still got me. I just thought that was...
Every time.
Yeah, I thought that was fantastic.
And I will never want to see the end scene again. Honestly. I mean, I was watching it on my phone when I was heading to trivia semifinals. But anyway, and I just see it differently. I see it but I think that was interesting.
Yeah.
I think this was really.
That's why movies are what they are. That's why it's such a great experience to share this stuff.
Al, do you have any opinion coming at the end?
I would like to see the 2-hour version of this film.
Yes,
He
I agree.
That's Al in our offsite.
And then if you want to see the 3-hour version, you can watch it after the 2-hour version, and it will not be ruined for you for eternity.
I think I'll just stick to the 2-hour version.
Although he's you do like negative stuff, so you might like the 3-hour.
I like.
Is it soul crushing? Because if it's soul crushing, then I'll definitely.
I don't think it's soul crushing. I don't think.
Well, it's the part at the end where Toto has the chains on him, and then they tear his flesh apart, and he says Jesus wept.
Oh my God! We just previewed an upcoming, or maybe a past podcast. We don't know where we are.
We don't know what order they're coming.
We're all screwed up timeline wise. He's wearing the shirt.
He
again.
picked Hellraiser for us to watch.
Show him your shirt. Show him your shirt. Can't see it.
What's that character's name?
Pinhead.
Pinhead. Yeah.
Everybody knows Pinhead. All right, that was awesome. That was a good one. It was a good mix, and I think we learned a little bit about that film too. So that was good. All right.
Thanks for having me.
Everybody. We'll see you again.
See you.
All right. Please join us next time as we discuss the film The Night Watchman with one of its stars, Ken Arnold. And check out our website, Yippee-Ki-Yay motherpodcast.com.